Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. I have Bill Holter from JS Mineset back on the line to celebrate Brexit. Of course, everyone's heard about the historic news, and I think the bureaucrats in Brussels and the banksters in the City of London are scratching their heads wondering what the heck happened as humanity stood for freedom. Bill, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again, Sean.
Boy, I took a look at a zero hedge graph last night, and it showed the moment in which the British people started to embrace the idea of leaving the EU, and that was after Obama went over there and had the audacity to lecture them about why they needed to stay. I don't like him much in this country. Apparently, they don't like him much in Britain either because Brexit won the day.
Well, Sean, I understand you're using the term celebrate because it was the people's will, but I don't think it's going to be much of a celebration.
When you say it won't be a celebration, let's first set the stage for people so that they understand that had the Brits decided to stay in the EU, those bureaucrats in Brussels that I spoke about, those unelected, unaccountable monsters, probably beholden to the City of London banksters, would have had their way with Britain for the rest of history. And I don't think the British people would have ever been able to extricate themselves from the EU had it not gone this way. So in that sense, it's a celebration for humanity. But I think you're speaking of the larger geopolitical and economic situation, which is now surely going to deteriorate at hyperspeed.
Right. From a financial, I'm talking about it from a financial standpoint. From a financial standpoint, there had to have been many institutions on Friday that died. You had such volatility, and there's so much leverage in the system. I mean, just look at the British pound. The British pound was down, call it 9 or 10% versus the dollar in what? 5 minutes, literally. It broke from close to 150 and traded down to 132, 133, something like that. And then on top of that, you had gold that went up 5%. So in British pound terms, gold was up 15% in a day. When you have that type of move, and we had it, you saw Italy was down 12%, Germany was down huge. You had massive moves in all types of markets that had to have caught traders, institutions, etc., offside, and more than wiped out their margin. So you definitely had institutions on Friday that died, and my fear is that we're going to find out Monday and Tuesday that there were failed institutions. I mean, obviously behind the scenes, you've got the ECB, you've got the Bank of England, you've got the Federal Reserve, probably lending trillions of dollars all over the world to try to paper this over and to try to prevent the acknowledgement, if you will, of insolvencies. But there were insolvencies on Friday.
Well, one would have to imagine that there had to have been, Bill, because when you see a currency move like that, 10 to 15%, I think 15 or 16% at one point for the British pound when priced in gold. You see gold up $58 is where it ended. At one point it was up $100 an ounce. I think it ended on Friday at $1,320, well over that very important psychological $1,300 barrier. Silver finished the day at $17.79. We must at this point just be waiting for the bodies to be carried out.
Well, I wrote a piece Friday afternoon regarding the moves on Friday. I really believe that the moves on Friday are a roadmap, a future roadmap to the upcoming reset. In other words, the direction that assets, with one caveat, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but the direction that asset prices went on Friday is the direction that Mother Nature is going to push things toward a reset. And the one caveat, you saw an influx obviously into the dollar, but you also saw treasury yields drop. And that obviously was from a safe haven standpoint. The U.S. is a broke entity. And when this thing comes to a head, the U.S. is not going to be seen as a safe haven. The U.S. is going to be seen as a bankrupt entity, and you're going to see a mass flight out of treasuries, out of dollars.
Now, the dollar obviously benefited from what happened on Friday with the Brexit vote. I don't think that the dollar long-term health is going to fare much better than the Venezuelan bolivar. Some people might disagree with that, but the end game is now in play, and we've been talking about the end game for a very long time, Bill. But, as we talk about what happened on Friday with the Brexit vote, Zero Hedge is reporting on Saturday that the real Brexit catastrophe was that the world's richest 400 people lost 127 billion, and the cumulative total of losses were 3.9 trillion according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. But of course, that doesn't even take into account banks and derivatives. This is just surface stuff, isn't it?
Right. I was going to say, I would bet you that the numbers are far larger than that.
And Greenspan is saying this is the worst period he recalls. There's nothing like it. I don't think that we can impress upon the audience in a large enough way, Bill. This is it. This is the line in the sand. Is this the black swan we've been waiting for?
My intention on Friday was to write an article talking about the system is a black swan, or is the black swan. And I say that from the standpoint of nobody really believes that a complete credit collapse can happen. And now Brexit is being called the black swan, but I don't think so. I think Brexit is a trigger point. And let's go back to lay a little bit of groundwork on Brexit. I'm not so sure that the British people would have even been offered a referendum if I'm talking about a Trojan horse here. It's my thought that it's very possible that they knew this outcome was going to happen. They knew that the people would vote to exit. And they know the system's coming down. Now they have something to point at. Now they can say, oh, well, it was the British voters' fault. Mm. That's one possibility. I just don't think that the referendum would have been offered to the British people if this outcome was not some way beneficial to the elites. And I just think the elites are going to be able to point at this and say, well, our policies would have worked, but the British people messed it up.
Well, look, there's nobody out there more skeptical than me. I'm skeptical about everything I read. But you know what? These people have appeared to be losing control. V, the guerrilla economist, our friend, has talked very much about that. Their New World Order dreams seem to be going up in smoke. As a residual effect of this, we see Scotland, we see other nations in the EU saying, we want out too. We're going to hold referendums. And we see their EU New World Order dreams going up in smoke.
Right. Now you definitely will see other nations have referendums. They're already talking about it in Netherlands, France. Italy has one scheduled for October. I'm not even sure that the financial markets are going to make it to October. Hey, Sean, I was just thinking this morning the irony of Britain voting out of the EU. If you think about it, you can go back 1,000 years to the time of the Tower of London, or go back 400 years, where it was in Britain that fractional reserve banking was started. What I'm getting at is Britain was the beginning of, if you want to call it, Western Empire. And wouldn't it be ironic if Brexit is the trigger that wipes out the Western financial system, and Britain turns out to have been the end of the Western Empire?
Wow. Well, it's possible. And, the other thing that's true, we've been proven right here, Bill. Everything we've been talking about for years now is being buoyed and is being supported as hardcore truth based on what we saw on Friday with gold back over 1,300. When people panic, when institutions panic, when the world's richest people panic, when people lose faith and confidence in the financial order, they turn to precious metals, and they turn to precious metals in mass. Bill, this is just the beginning, and I was listening to a Jim Willie interview with Silver Doctors, and Willie's predicting a 4 to 5 fold move in silver in the near future. I don't think that's out of line at this point. Now, in the past, we've heard people with these pie in the sky predictions, and even my friends Bix Weir and Jeff Nielsen can put a real world value on silver today. Well, actually, I should say a week ago. This is before Brexit. $1,000 an ounce silver is justified. I think we're going to see some very, very big moves in the precious metals, and I don't think that the cartel can stop it now, Bill.
Well, a couple things. If you look at a chart of gold priced in the US dollar index, it's clear that what happened from 2012 to late last year was really only a correction in a bull market. And this past Friday, it broke out to new highs, not all-time highs, but it has broken out, and you can see the long-term, the monthly MACDs have clearly crossed over to the upside, and it's higher from here. When you're talking about big numbers like $1,000 on silver, the only way that's possible is if the control of the paper manipulation is broken. And that's very possible. It's very possible now. What we've talked about for the last couple of years, as far as a COMEX default, it looks more and more real, because you can go back March, April, and May. There's still about 16 or 17 tons that looks like it has not been delivered. June started the month with 49 tons standing for delivery. I believe that was the all-time high for any monthly delivery. And that number did not bleed down like it has in the past. It bled down 4 or 5 tons the first couple of days, but it's come all the way back to 49 tons. Now, what's really interesting is May is not a delivery month, and they actually delivered, or didn't deliver, but there's 6.8 tons standing for delivery. And July is crazy. July, again, is basically a zero month. And as of yesterday's close, there was over 5,000 contracts open. So you're talking about 500,000 ounces. You're talking about over 15, 16 tons of gold in a month that usually delivers nothing. And that 15, 16 tons a year ago would have been considered a fairly sizable June or December delivery. And then, of course, you've got August, which is out of sight. August is, I think, what is it, 400,000 contracts open. So you're talking about 40 million ounces of gold. That's half of the world's annual global production.
Well, and I'll tell you a dirty little secret that everybody here, of course, our listeners are so smart about monetary policy and fractional reserve banking and the history of the Fed. They know what I'm about to say is true. When you walk into any bank or credit union, you can't get physical gold and you can't get physical silver. And what do we see over at the COMEX? Nothing but paper promises, Bill. I mean, how many paper promises are there for every 1 ounce of physical at the COMEX?
Well, that has dropped. That number that was 500 in gold has dropped dramatically. I think it's down to 33 now. And that's just a function of they had such low registered gold a month ago, and they've accumulated something like 40, 45 tons of gold. So the registered category now, as of Friday, I believe, was 53 tons. But if you add March, April, May, and the June month together, there's over 63 or 64 tons that are standing for delivery. So there's not even enough gold in the registered category to make delivery to these contracts that are standing.
I'll tell you what, I think, as Zero Hedges noted, what happened on Friday is just a precursor to really the bodies being carried out on Monday. We're going to know a lot more on Monday, aren't we?
Right. Friday, markets all over the world gapped open. In other words, you couldn't trade between where it closed on Thursday and where it opened on Friday. We very well may have another breakaway gap in the same direction on Monday. And if we have a breakaway gap on Monday, then you're talking about some serious margin calls on Tuesday. And they're margin calls that can't be met. So you could see this thing unwind really quickly.
You know what? I want to support something you said earlier about the possibility that the elites at the highest levels knew this was going to happen or allowed it to happen and didn't rig the vote simply because they wanted to have somebody or something, some event to blame for the crash of the global financial system. Because again, if we look back at what Soros has been doing, what was he doing, Bill? He was selling stocks, he was shorting the market, he was going long gold, and he was very public about all of that in the months leading up to this. Of course, the elite of the elite, the Soros, and who is he, a Rothschild puppet? These guys are always positioned correctly for these events, aren't they?
And in the politeness of the elite, the public was warned.
Well, that's true. There is that old belief that they like to tell people what they're going to do before they do it, and if you don't heed that warning, then it's on you, because they're social Darwinists, and they're more than happy to take you out back and shoot you like a bad horse if you're not going to heed their warnings. And I think that that's what's going on here. I mean, again, I've got a neighbor across the street who runs big money for high net worth individuals, and we spoke on Thursday, and he didn't bring up Brexit. He didn't know about Brexit. He wasn't paying attention to Brexit. And I'm betting a lot of his clients were calling him on Friday saying, hey, what the heck? Why are we down 600 points, 500 points? And it probably took him a while to figure it out. Most of our friends, neighbors, and colleagues are not paying attention to this information, Bill.
He probably told him it was a buying opportunity.
Yeah, that's right. It's a gold buying opportunity. Unfortunately, he didn't come up with the word gold. All right, do you want to hear a fun piece of audio that I could just share with the audience? This is just completely for entertainment purposes as we move out. This is about silver. I'd like to hear your opinion about this. This comes from the Simon Parkes Connecting Consciousness podcast, and I just want to, guys, believe me, the caveat to this is that Simon Parkes is a lifelong experiencer. He claims of aliens and elementals and UFOs, and he gets interviewed on the Kerry Cassidy podcast from time to time. And I just find it interesting, though, this particular piece of audio relating to the Bilderberg Group, death of the dollar, and the future of precious metals here. I want to play this soundbite, Bill. This is probably going to be 30 seconds to a minute, so bear with me.
The Bilderberg meeting was purely and simply to ratify, perhaps is too strong a word, it was to debate the executive of the top group, and I did say that the executive were having a meeting, that's the top group of the Illuminati. They produced an executive policy or decision. The Bilderberg group, as part of their work, looked at that. I understand they've ratified China's proposal. China has agreed to allow America and some European countries access to the financial codes using a German bank, but not Deutsche Bank, because Deutsche Bank isn't perhaps what it used to be. So it means that if there's an exchange of debt and America agrees on certain things, and I don't know I haven't been privy to what those certain things are, but it means that America can access some of the gold, and the soft landing is much more likely for America than a hard crash. But I do know that one of the prerequisites of this deal was America moving to a silver-backed currency. So what the Americans call the fiat dollar, to get away from the paper dollar and to back everything with a silver metal. So that's what's happening on that side.
Is that anything you want to comment about? The silver-backed currency? That would make silver go up real quick, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. I don't know about a silver-backed currency, but I do believe that there are some talks going on with the elder families of China to use gold as collateral for humanity. So I do think that there is some validity to that. I've heard some stories, and I've spoken to a couple individuals that I believe are very credible, and they tell me, not secondhand but firsthand, they know that there have been and there are ongoing talks for using Chinese elder family gold as collateral.
Yeah, well, it's very interesting. I think one of the Rothschilds is under indictment in France and on the run. I mean, that's on the record. I think the tide is turning to some degree, and I'll tell you this: one thing is absolutely certain, Bill, and it's this: people around the world are waking up. And whereas 20 years ago nobody knew about the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and the Illuminati and the Council on Foreign Relations and the Bilderberg Group, and nobody was paying attention to any of that, the Trilateral Commission and Henry Kissinger and all these vampires that have been sucking out the lifeblood of humanity for centuries, the spotlight is on them now, Bill. People are paying attention.
Well, that's fairly easily explainable. First off, you have the internet, so there is more information available to those who want to dig. It's maybe not more information, but the information is more readily or easily available. The other thing is there's more desire to find out what's exactly happening because people know something's wrong. Something's really very wrong because the working guy is falling further and further behind every year. So people know something's wrong, and I think that has gotten more people to dig for the truth, and they've done digging, and they've arrived at what you're talking about.
Yeah, and I'll tell you this. Let's leave people with this glimmer of hope. I was reading yesterday that the top trend on Google Trends recently was this: will Hillary go to prison? And people are waking up to these oligarchs, these puppet masters that control the puppets. Puppets like Hillary, puppets like her husband Bill, puppets like the Bush family and the Bush crime family, the Bush cartel, Kissinger. These puppets are being exposed, and people definitely know something's wrong, and people are fed up. And I think that if Brexit is any indication, humanity is finally willing to take a stand against these people and take a stand for nationalism and sovereignty. And that's the best possible news there is, because if we leave it up to these banksters, if we leave it up to the CFR, if we leave it up to the Bilderberg Group, they will usher us into their Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 policies. They will absolutely destroy our economies. They will deindustrialize us even more than they already have, and they will usher in their new world order. But I think humanity's resisting.
I would add to that. The Brexit vote, I think, as you mentioned, people are waking up. I think it's very positive to the Trump campaign. I think it shows without a doubt Trump can definitely win. And especially if more and more of the misdeeds of Hillary come out, you've got an angry public.
Yeah. Yeah, you absolutely do. And I hope you can hear me okay, Bill. I know we're breaking up a little bit. But the nice thing that we see happening with Trump, and people can say whatever they want about Trump. They can say he's controlled opposition. I don't care. But you know what he's doing? I'll judge him by his actions. He's calling Hillary a criminal, and he's naming exactly why she should be in prison. His words, not mine. She should be in prison for her crimes against the country. Those are his words. He's spoken them loudly, clearly, and often lately, and you would not hear that from any other Republican who would be the GOP nominee. Any of those other controlled guys in the Paul Ryan or Nate, pick your poison. None of those other cats are going to be calling Hillary a criminal and calling her out for her New World Order crimes. But Trump is.
Well, I was going to point that out. You've never, ever seen a politician. Yes, you've seen mudslinging from between politicians, but you've never, ever seen anything like what Trump is doing as far as telling the truth.
Oh, that's right.
And that's what he's doing. He's telling the truth.
Look, and I'm gonna quantify this further, and I'll let you go. But remember, after Bush Sr. left office, Clinton came in, and people would say, "Well, are you going to go after Bush Sr. for any of these lies or anything he did?" And Clinton said, "No, we're going to look forward. We're going to move ahead. There's no reason to look back. As a country, we need to move forward." Clinton would leave, then the next Bush would come in, and people would say, "Are you going to prosecute Clinton for what they did? And they stole all that stuff from the White House when they were leaving, and Whitewater, all these other issues." No, we're going to look forward. We're going to move ahead. There's no need to look back. As Americans, we need to look forward. Same thing with Obama. Same thing. That was their playbook. And now you have somebody actually saying, no, time out. We need to prosecute our politicians and our leaders when they commit crimes, just like we prosecute anybody else. And boy, is it high time. Thank God we're seeing that, because she needs to go to prison post haste.
Well, Sean, let me just add, if Trump does win, if there is an election and he does win, and I'm not positive on either. I mean, Trump, if he gets too close, they may take him out. Who knows? But if he does win, and it turns out that if he is a man of his word, all kinds of people are going to go to jail, and it wouldn't surprise me to see all kinds of like the banker suicides. You'll see political suicides, which aren't really suicides.
Gotcha. Copy that. Well, all he would need to do is get in there and remove Loretta Lynch and put somebody who's honest at the head of the DOJ, and we'd see this country change overnight, because Loretta Lynch is merely covering up for the puppet named Hillary Clinton, trying to protect her, just like Obama is.
Well, the laws are already all on the books. It's just that the laws are not being enforced.
Yep,
we don't need new laws. We don't need more laws. We don't need more regulation. We just need what's on the books to be followed and enforced and upheld.
Yeah. All right. Well, the laws are not, or at least should not be, just for the little people. Of course, that's what the wealthy think, and I sure hope that we can see a sea change take place moving forward. I think for many of us, this Brexit vote is a glimmer of hope, and certainly a piece of good news that most people didn't expect, Bill. I thought they'd rig it. I didn't think that this would go through. I didn't think that they'd actually vote to leave the EU, or if they did, the vote would be rigged.
I wrote yesterday, I was surprised. I figured somehow the vote would be rigged. I even put in the article, they're probably wishing that they had Diebold doing the vote count.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Except the British people are too smart. They hand counted most of the votes, whereas here we're all electronic.
And there was a on social media, there was a thing going around, bring your own pen, because they were handing out pencils, and of course pencils can be erased.
Oh.
So,
well, you guys can catch Bill Holter's original work over at JS Mineset, jsmineset.com. About once, every week or 2 weeks, Bill, you release an article publicly, but otherwise people need to go to JS Mineset to see your daily writings, correct?
right, I write generally 2 to 3 pieces per week. Once every couple weeks, I'll send one out publicly. And Jim and I, each weekend, we do a one-on-one interview chat, whatever you want to call it, and that's under the subscription side. That alone, just listening to Jim, is worth the price of admission.
Yeah, absolutely. And guys, you can check that out at jsmineset.com. And of course, please visit us over at sgtreport.com, the corporate propaganda antidote, and visit our aggregation site with all of the best from the truth media at thelibertymill.com. And if you want to see some more esoteric spiritual warfare type videos that I hand select myself, check out thephaser.com. And we really do appreciate your support. Let's all hang in there together. It's going to be a crazy week ahead. Thank God that those of us in the know already own physical gold and physical silver. Bill, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Sean. Before I leave, I wanted to ask you, Jim and I just recently had Greg Hunter interview us. And we held it for our subscribers for a couple days, and then it went public. And we'd like to ask if you would interview the two of us within the next month and a half, something like that.
Oh, wow, thanks. Yeah, I would be honored to do that. I appreciate you including me. So, for sure, let's set that up. I look forward to it. Thanks, Bill.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
Awesome. Well, I'll talk to you in email world, and we'll figure that out. And until next time, guys, thanks so much for joining us. Have a terrific week ahead, and we'll see you at sgtreport.com. God bless.